Have you ever experienced being banned from a particular show?
I've had an invitation or two rescinded. I was told that certain people behind the scenes were afraid that I might write a bad review.
If people are afraid because you might write a bad review or write negative criticism about what they're doing, then why are you in this business?
Which is again counter to why we do
Yes.
this.
That's so true.
I mean,
Out of curiosity, like how do you start your process? I mean, I'm pretty sure that in terms of the processes of writers, they vary from writer to writer. As many as many kinds of process as there are writers. So for you, how do you start your reviews?
yeah, I think the process really starts when you go to the theater. You already, most of the time, you already know a bit about the show.
Yes.
Or if it's in the case of like Les Mis or Miss Saigon, you know a lot or everything about the show. And I always enter the theater rooting for the show. People tend to stereotype critics as these disgruntled, angry people just want to tear a show apart. But that's the complete opposite, actually. I'm devoting my time and my energy and my resources for the show. I want it to succeed.
Yes.
So
yes.
that's where the process starts. And then I used to take notes for a time, and I found that a bit unhelpful, actually.
Yeah.
Because then when I come out of the theater and I start writing down the review, it's how I felt, the experience that stays with me, that I find is quite vital to put on paper.
Yeah.
Usually it's the introduction that's quite challenging for me. How do I start the written piece itself? But once I get that out of the way, tuloy-tuloy na siya. How about you though?
Right. For me, I never really liked writing down notes during the show because it does take you away from the experience. So normally when I would walk in, and I also agree with what you're saying, that people have this idea of critics just walking in there and then immediately they would start picking apart the scenery. It's less about that, and that also explains why I don't like writing notes, is because when I sit down until I get up to go home, I want to take that experience as a whole. And a large part of what I write normally is I could probably describe it as a process that happens in two parts. The first one, of course, is basically a recitation of all of the technical issues that the show could have had and areas of improvement in a more technical sense. But a large part of the reviews, the other half, which is I think the most important thing, is to provide some kind of insight as to what it's like to really sit down there and enjoy the show. So that's actually, I think, and this is one of the things that would allow me to provide a really balanced review, in the sense that there is always room for improvement, but that doesn't necessarily preclude you from enjoying a show. So is it the same with you though?
I was gonna ask actually, if in that process, do you ever find yourself holding back or mincing words, or the idea that you have to be kind, which is not a bad idea. I just want to know what you think.
It has a lot to do with the context in which the show is made. Like, for example, you don't really judge everything with like a set metric. Specifically, especially if it's, I started out, if I may just share, I started out with a lot of community theater. There is truth in community theater. It's like that scrappy attitude that, either students or, people from marginalized communities, we would throw shows for them. And then, of course, how can you compare that, or how can you actually review that against something that is like, for example, an imported like West End musical or Broadway musical? There are standards that you have to set, or there are personal standards that you have to set. So in terms of where kindness comes in is probably in considering the context and how it was created.
Yeah. I have to agree with that. In fact, to jump off on what you said, if I think about it now, some of my favorite theater going experiences have been in the universities
Yes.
and the community outfits. There aren't that many, but of the ones I've been to, I've had quite a fulfilling time. Yeah, one in particular that stands out is this group based in Marikina. I forget the exact names now, but this was with Sina Miko Angeles, who's now
Yes,
directing
yes.
Bar Boys. And that production, this was in 2019. That production was very raw.
Mm-hmm.
The energy was, I would say, not quite measured, not quite contained in any way. These were community kids, but I had such a fulfilling time then,
Yes.
than in many other shows.
For me, one example that I would have would be the actually the last show I saw and reviewed before the pandemic. This was Next to Normal by
Blue Rep.
Ateneo, by
Yeah.
Blue Rep. Um, it's and then of course we had like the Next to Normal after very recently, but even then I remember sitting in that theater. It's a very small auditorium, and then the sets were obviously very rustic, but the performances that they turned out and the production was just so moving. So that's actually I would have to say that again. I agree. It's never the budget.
Yeah.
It's never the size or scale of the show that would make it a good show.
Yeah.
If it's a good show, it's just a good show.
Yeah. Did you see Bring It On by Blue Rep?
Unfortunately, I missed that one. Was
Also
that
crazy
very good?
fun. Like not perfect in any sense, but just so much fun. Yeah.
They're doing great work over there.
All right, let's start with the first one.
Okay.
The Power Mac Black Box Theater is notorious for its appalling acoustics. This show has to count as one of the worst sounding productions ever staged there. Is this yours?
I'm not sure,
No, this
but
is
I don't
mine.
think it is.
This is mine. I wrote that for Next to Normal early this year.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I
yes.
love that musical.
Mhm.
And I could understand a lot of what they were singing there, but that's because
Yeah.
I memorized the score.
You memorize the score. It's actually assisted.
Yes.
It's actually assisted
yes,
awareness.
Yeah. But even I had difficulty.
This is the kind of show that comes by very rarely and sadly all too briefly. A flash of genius in what is otherwise a sea of adaptations, imports, and derivative driven. I think this is mine. Okay, so this one I remember very well. It's from Pinkian. When I saw it, it was a lot of it does borrow from the modern rap musicals or hip hop musicals. There was a section, but it was just a section of that. But it was during the time when we were really, or at least I recall, I was just seeing like Western production, one right after the other. And then I got to see it. And it was just, I mean, I hate to be trite, but like it's a breath of fresh air during that time. That's why I was able to write it that way.
The play seems to defy the laws of physics. It feels like time bends around the stage, making the 3.5-hour performance seem like an eternity. I don't think this is mine.
It's mine. It's mine. This was for a show. Poncho Pilato? Pilato, sorry. That was a trip. I remember I probably broke I probably broke my friend's arm. The sheer amount of like nudges and like increasingly as the play progressed, I was basically punching him in the arm already.
Okay. How's the friend?
Well, he's still alive, so I think that's the thing. In a year that has so far witnessed many new big name productions come up short, this show is a force to be reckoned with. Truly best of the decade material, and its 4 actors epitomes of generous theatrical performances.
That's my closing
Yes.
lines from Kisap Mata. Yes. Truly a force to be reckoned with.
Yes. I actually agree. I when I saw it, I was really blown away and completely agree with this one.
And it's not really a complete departure, but it's its own creature.
Yes,
It's not the
yes.
movie.
I actually saw the film prior to sort of like refresh my memory as to what it was. But when I walked into the theater, it's a completely different thing. It's a new thing.
This person must be sent to director prison now.
Ooh, not me.
Did I write that about? I don't want to name names, but I know who that is. Because it's been just like one questionably directed production after another.
Yeah.
What frustrates you with our current theater landscape?
What frustrates me the most really is two things. One is I can't really put it in words in terms of English, but yung pwede na mentality when it comes to productions. And that lack of desire to create truly meaningful and excellent theater. And I say this because as a person who has seen productions abroad, I know it's sort of unfair to sort of like compare, but the thing is there has to always be forward momentum in the things that we do. Right now we're looking at production houses or production companies that are doing the exact same thing over and over again. That's something that is really frustrating because you'd always want to see something new. You'd always want to see something novel. The other thing that frustrates me really is I don't know if it's like echoes of colonialism, where whenever we have something, whenever we import something that has a really big budget, everybody's entertainment budget immediately goes to that show, which really really makes it very difficult for independent or smaller outfits to actually make a difference or put together their shows. So those are the two things that
Well, I can think of scenarios based on what you're saying.
yes.
But maybe I'll be a bit kinder in this sense. I wouldn't go so far as to hold it against theater companies in regards to what they're staging. I wouldn't give an opinion on that anymore. What does frustrate me is this kind of blind spot when it comes to considering preparation from the audience's point of view. Audiences are not all based in Manila.
Yes.
Audiences have other things to do, other places to put their money in. It's very frustrating for me when a show just announces its schedule like a month or less.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, this is 2025. What are we doing? Why are we acting like we don't have social media or we don't have knowledge of what audiences can put their money in aside from the theater, or that people just have other things to do and not all of them can go to the theater at a moment's notice. I guess I'm saying that because I'm not exactly based in Manila anymore, although I try to be as present in our theater as much as possible.
No, I completely agree because actually I remember a time, and again, this is way, way back in time, in the 90s, there were only like a handful of theater companies that you can choose from. So it's either you go to Tanghalang Pilipino or you go to Rep or Trumpets. In terms of the number of like theater companies that share in the market, there's definitely fewer. There's definitely fewer then. But now with, at least, I don't know, there's a lot of like different theater companies, both bringing in imported material and those producing and those producing original shows. So it's a much more competitive market. And the thing is what you mentioned, that you have to consider the timing of your shows and how you announce it, and like to grab that share of that wallet. It's somewhat unfair to actually do that because there's the level of competition now between these theater companies was something that is really unknown when at least in the 90s and 2000s.
Yeah, I can say a lot. I can go on and on about this idea of announcing your shows early enough.
Yes.
Just because it's also a way of expanding and democratizing our theaters.
Yes.
We keep saying that we're just catering to the same audiences, and those audiences are here in Metro Manila. Well, if you want people to fly in from other parts of the country, then let them know in advance because they have to plan their lives.
Yes, that's true. And it's actually, I think one of the main reasons why we really should encourage people to do, social media marketing for their shows is because you do have to let these people know way ahead of time. I mean, and the thing is, the phenomenon of actually hopping on a plane to go see a show, it's not just basically Manila anymore. You really have, because of social media, and that's, everybody in the country has access to social media, that's a giant opportunity for you to make sure that, you fill those seats, because that's the goal of putting on these shows.
I guess going back to what you're saying, that's why these international touring productions that come to Manila are often hits, because they announce like several months, even a year ahead, right? And the buzz is built, the anticipation is built. People from all over the country would actually come, or even Filipinos from outside the country would come to Manila to watch.
I remember the time that's the best example for that with me was they announced Saigon was coming home. This was way, way, way before. You can't get a hotel room anywhere near the CCP.
Oh.
And it's that kind of opportunity that I think these theater companies should grab, because that does, and it's what's good for them is also good for the surrounding economy around the venue. So hotel rooms, restaurants, all of these things, and even like TNVS drivers.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, I guess in the end, it doesn't have to be a big thing, right? It doesn't have to be at the level of these international touring productions. But like, for example, just announcing your cast at a reasonable time when people are online, and not like in the middle of the night, which we've seen happen more than once this year.
I just hope that in terms of what we have to look forward to when it comes to Philippine theater. I mean, and it's interesting that you mentioned that it's not just the big shows that need to explore this. It's also the smaller ones, because personally, one of the biggest hopes I have for Philippine theater moving forward is that for every material, or for every Western material that you have, anything from Broadway or West End, for each one of those, there has to be an original Filipino thing. It's always about, we can sit here and talk about foreign productions and stuff like that. But for me, what is the most important as a writer or as a member of this community is to really build upon the idea of an independent Filipino theater community that tells Filipino stories.
On that point, we're so far beyond the time when, the Phantom of the Opera would be at the main theater of the CCP, and all the local shows would be bereft of audiences.
Yes.
Now we can have Miss Saigon having a sold-out show in Soler alongside One More Chance having an unprecedented sold-out run in PETA.
Indeed.
How about reviews that are not quite honest, though? I mean, for me, the idea that a review is less than honest is anathema. Yeah.
Actually, that's true. For me, in terms of reviews, it should always be truthful. Otherwise, it doesn't serve its purpose of educating people and informing people of the thing. It becomes more or less like a selfish exercise. It's always fun to write criticism. I mean, I hate to say this, but it's like the one, the definition of ratatouille when it comes to criticism. It's always fun to write not so good critique. It's more difficult to write about the truth. But in the Philippines, somehow it's the other way around. It's like people would provide these very positive reviews or provide glowing reviews and raves of these shows. But in private or, they would really tear a show apart. For me, that's not the way you should do it, because number one, it doesn't help anyone if you don't publicize it. Doesn't help anyone. If you're just going to spread it among your friends, it's what are we doing here?
I think speaking as someone who also creates, and as I mentioned earlier, I also make fiction, poetry. I've been in the writing workshop circuit and in the literary scene. I think one thing that artists and creators should bear in mind is we should be less precious with the things that we create. We create it not just for ourselves, but to give it to the world. So when we give it to the world, it has to come. We have to have the attitude that we're giving it to the world, and all sorts of feedback would come. And how do we become better creators and artists if not for the feedback that, tells us the not so great parts of it? I don't know if you've had this experience. Creatives and or producers or the makers themselves would exercise the power that they have to ban or silence critics, for example, or reviewers who give not so good reviews or are known to give not so good reviews or honest feedback.
Well, for me, actually, I haven't really directly experienced that. Only because whenever I go to a show that I'm going to review, I try to keep as low a profile as possible. Though I did notice that sometimes when I announce which outfit I'm, when I get the tickets, basically, it's always under PalabasTayo. It's a mix of like facial expressions. But the thing is, by and large, I think they should really welcome the presence of critics in their shows, not only because of the publicity, but because of the opportunity to learn what the shortcomings of a production would be. Because otherwise, the thing is, it's not as if an audience can provide feedback. An audience definitely could. But in terms of actionable items, they have a better chance of getting that from critics because the critics will be able to articulate exactly what is wrong with the show.
Yeah.
For an audience, it's good, but it's sort of lacking. I think that's the extent that you're going to be able to get from an audience, a regular audience member. Whereas a critic would probably tell you, your acoustics are bad, your staging is bad, your set is falling apart, and stuff like that. But so they should really welcome that. At least that's how I view it. How about you?
Yeah. I get what you're saying about front of house all of a sudden being very on the edge of their seats, and the ushers being all of a sudden attentive to you. But one thing I've noticed as I wrote through the years and became not really friends, but more familiar with people on the other side of the fence is that it's usually the ones who are open to criticism, who don't act like you're like this kind of god who's entering the theater. And those who understand that a critic or a reviewer can be a friend of the theater.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, one instance, I'm not sure if you've heard about this, but in 2018, I had a case of a disappearing review.
Oh, really? I didn't.
It was a pan of a show, and it disappeared from the site online, and I don't know how that happened, but
my goodness.
I mean, people behind the scenes told me what exactly happened on that.
Oh God.
Have you had similar experience?
No, I primarily not like that. That's crazy because actually we do have our own platform, so I suppose there's really no way for that to happen. But in terms of feedback for a review, I have heard some very some negative reactions to it. Yeah, nowhere near that magnitude.
Well, I guess that was an isolated experience. On the whole, there are people on the other side of the fence that whenever I go to the theater, I just look forward to meeting them. And I have panned some of their shows of these people. And some of these people can be just a joy to talk to.
I think part of the reason why it's very difficult to actually hear harsh criticism coming from anyone is really because as an industry or as an art form, there's a lot of passion that's being put into these shows. And it's not as if critics basically say, that doesn't matter. It's that, does it matter? So whatever it is that you put on stage, you have to understand that it has to serve a certain purpose. It has to convey a particular meaning. If it is not successful in conveying that meaning because of everything that goes on around it, the role of the critic there is to point out how you can actually learn from it and focus that message so that your audience would take away the most out of their shows.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, I guess you just have to think about it this way, that you get a few hundred people inside a theater, and these people are paying a few thousand pesos
Yes.
to watch your show, hoping it's going to be a good show. and then you give them something that's barely understandable because the sound is just bad.
Yeah. It's that kind of distraction that really diminishes the message. Talking about, I actually wanted to circle back in terms of how how some production houses actually treat critics. Have you ever experienced actually being banned from a particular show?
Banned from a particular show, not outright though. I've had an invitation or two rescinded just
Oh, okay.
because I'm not quite sure what happened there, but I was told that certain people behind the scenes were afraid that I might write a bad review, which is again counter to why we do
Yes.
this.
That's so true.
I mean, how can I write a bad review of a show that I haven't even seen? That
And-
just doesn't make sense.
in a selfish way, I'm thinking, would you rather have negative feedback from someone who wants you to be better versus somebody who just says, well, it's just bad,
Yeah.
without any articulation of what that is. So I think, yeah, I mean, if people are afraid to actually have you sit there and watch their show because you might write a bad review or you might write negative criticism about what they're doing, then why are you in this business, right?
Yeah.
Actually, out of curiosity, I mean, we've been talking for this entire time about how we would view or how we view criticism. What would be your hopes in terms of seeing what kind of criticism moving forward in Philippine theater?
This is something that I just came to realize a bit late in terms of being a reviewer. And this happened when I moved from the medical sciences to the social sciences. I just think that reviewers should go beyond just what they're watching in the theater. Well, of course, to be a good reviewer or critic, you have to, one, constantly watch theater, but two, also constantly watch other media and then read as well. Not just read fiction or nonfiction, but read reviews as well. And only by doing that, I realized, can you extend your review, expand it to go just beyond the actual thing, contextualize it, put history into it, put other fields into what you're writing, and not just theater itself.
Yeah, actually, I completely agree. And it's interesting that you mentioned that actually one of the things that you really have to do as a critic is really look beyond the show that you're seeing and look at different media and how they actually affect. Because the theater doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's always a response to what is popular, what is interesting to a particular audience, and for that audience that you're trying to capture. So a lot of these things, when you sort of you get stuck with the usual, oh, this show was great, oh, this show is this and that, without contextualizing it where it is in time and space, then it's really not, it won't age well, basically, is what I'm trying to say. There's no academic value to it because you're not breaking it down. So basically, for me personally, my hopes for theater criticism or the academic criticism of theater moving forward for the Philippines is that I hope that more critics would actually be brave enough to tell people what's really going on stage and how it could be improved.
Yes. Yeah, I completely agree. There's just a handful of us writing about the scene in Manila. And I wish there could be so many more people doing that. But people have to start somewhere, right?
That's
you have
true.
to keep watching in order to be able to write richly enough.
Yes. And the thing is, it's not just being, basically writing about it and everything. But it's interesting that you noted that you wish that there would be more critics. Yes, because, I mean, you can go to every critic in every outfit, whether it be in broadsheet or online. These critics will never, ever claim to have a monopoly on the truth when it comes to these shows. So the more people you have, the more opinions you have, the better, because you as a theater goer and as a producer of these shows would have all of these opinions to choose from. Now, that gives you more agency, and that's only going to push the industry forward.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, is there a show that you've seen or know about or like that you would defend to the grave because your opinion runs counter to the majority?
Let's see. I want to actually cite like a very positive one. I am absolutely in love with Grace. That show is just, for me, as close to perfect as you can get. It's thought provoking. It's moving, and the thing is, and I think this is one of the things that I really hold true. My definition of a great show is that you can go into it blind. But the thing is, once you're done with the show, once you leave the theater, you leave wanting to learn more about that particular story. And I remember that Grace did that for me. Just very quickly, I just wanted to share that after I saw it, I read about the miracle in Lipa and what were what the politics were back then and everything. And the thing is, that particular show provided such clear narrative to me. So that I think a lot of people during the time were, looking at it, oh, it's too academic, oh, it's too, what do you call this, cerebral. But I think it's something that every Filipino should see.
I guess that also speaks volumes on the playwright.
Yes.
Rest in peace, Floyd. But he always left you, his shows always left you more curious about the world. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Grace. I just thought it needed a bit more editing. And I guess, that was an obvious thing.
Yeah.
It was a last work. But yeah, I completely agree with what you said. It speaks volumes about the playwright.
Yeah.
Well, to answer my
How
own
about
question, I would
Yeah.
say Cats. Andrew
Really?
Lloyd Webber's best score. Bring it back
Right.
to Manila.
In terms of the best score, it's interesting. You have an ally in me. I actually like the score of Cats.
Okay.
I really do. It's funny because people get caught up with it doesn't have a plot. It
does.
doesn't have. It does. Yes, exactly. That's the thing. So. It's funny that you mentioned that. It's very rare to find someone who is willing to defend that
I'm
particular
so
musical.
glad we did this.
Yes.
Yes. May we have many more Jellicle lives.
Yes.
between the two
Brothers
of
in
us.
Arms with Cats. Yes.
Hi, this is Vincent Gregory Yu,
And I'm Ryan Robert Flores.
and this is
Critic
Critic
on
on Critic.
Critic.